All right, artists. So here's an introduction to our hidden picture drawing and pen and ink drawing technique project. Essentially what we're going to be doing is creating 11 by 14 illustrations using the stippling technique with the two pens that you were given in your bag. If you have different pens that you'd like to use for this project, you're more than welcome to use those. For now, the Micron pens, the Uniball pens that you've been given, are perfect for this project. Just make sure that whatever pen you do start the project with, you keep with it. Inks run in two different colors. There's lamp black and ivory black, and you have to make sure you're using the same brand of ink as well. So just make sure if you end up killing your pen or you need a new pen, let me know and we'll arrange for you to get new pens to work on for this project. Okay, so when you go through the slides, again, if you read through the objective, essentially what I want you to do is create an illustration using two images, and you can combine them however you want. We'll look at a few examples and integrate the stippling technique. The stippling technique is actually a really nice one because it is slow going. You have time to kind of organize your thought processes and organize what you're doing on the project because it is so slow paced. For my students that tend to work a little bit more quickly, or you don't have the patience of a saint, this project may be a little bit tough for you, but I think this is why it's a really good project for the beginning of the year, because you're going to be able to get a better understanding of how slow and involved the projects in Art 2 are going to be. So let's look at a couple examples. Basically, we're going to introduce the project today and kind of get you going. Hopefully you watched the stippling video of the eye. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to watch that, or go on YouTube and Google any video of stippling for the eye, or stippling I should say. It's a really self-explanatory process. It takes some practice, so I'm going to have you guys do a couple of demos and then you guys are going to be able to dive in. After you've watched this, hopefully you looked through the slides. This was a really beautiful stippling I found online. Here's another couple of them that I just thought were so beautiful. It's a really old technique, but it's definitely super popular with contemporary art, and you see a lot of students in high school and college doing this type of art style. Any of these artists that you see on the slides, if you want to look into more of their artwork, I specifically chose artists that you could Google and kind of see what they're doing. The most important thing is to take into consideration the broad scale of values that I want you to include in your stippling. It's really easy to do that because you'll have a lot of time. But if you look here, like if you look at the girl's cheek, so open up your slides, make sure you're doing this with me. It's completely white. So it looks like there's nothing there. That's intentional. It's important to leave certain areas totally alone. But if you look at the dots in the scarf, there's just a handful of dots in there. But the artist, you always want to leave a specific area totally white. And we're going to do that in the demos too. And then, you know, they integrated all kinds of different styles and techniques. You see here, there's like scales almost. Here, there's some dash marks. In the hair, the dots are very organized and orderly. But then when you look at the skin, they're a lot more sporadic, so you can kind of pick and choose. You're going to be gridding for this project if you'd like. You definitely don't have to grid. You know me, I'm always going to suggest that you grid, but it's entirely up to you. Here's another example. You can kind of see the skin up close. These are professional artists, so I don't want you to be intimidated or think this is the quality I'm expecting for this project. But it's certainly an inspiration for you to consider. Okay, let's turn the page. So here's Rob Christensen. And basically what I wanted you to take in when you looked at his piece was that you can do a landscape study for this project. It includes lots of gray. The only thing that I think he probably could have done more of is a little bit more contrast, but he chose it wisely. Down here, there's just some highlights where the rocks are, and then up in the windows, there's some white. You look at the sky, there's this beautiful gradient from light gray to really light gray. The ocean is really dark. If you look at the ocean, everyone puts a label on water like it's difficult to draw, but when you look at it, it's very simple. Obviously, the artist had to come in and draw all of that technical detail, but if that's something that you think might intrigue you, go for it. Obviously, this is, again, a professional piece. The artist probably took bajillion years to create this portrait, but that's the beauty of stippling. And you guys have a lot of time right now at home. Obviously, you're doing a lot of work at home as well, but if you want to do this, this is one you can do while you're watching movies, you can do it while you're listening to music, you can do it while you're hanging out with your siblings. It's generally a project that doesn't take a lot of brain power, it just takes patience, and you just need to pay attention to where you're putting the pen. If you look at this one, we all love our pets, and this one's crazy gorgeous, crazy beautiful. The artist specifically included really gorgeous textures and lines in the dog fur. If you look at it in this video, you know, it looks almost like wavy water or something like that. It doesn't look like dog hair. And that's okay. You can totally get a little bit more abstract and have fun with stippling. It doesn't have to be a perfect illustration like this one where you see these absolutely perfect textures and you never know it was stippling. When you look at this one, there's definitely some play. And the most important thing I want you to take into consideration is the importance of contrast in this project. So white versus black. So the artist specifically included a really dark shadow around the face in order to make you feel like this is the center of attention. Is not necessarily even like the beautiful fur on the tail or the hind leg, but the face, the direction this hunting dog is looking in the grass. All of those little grass pieces were drawn out. All that he had to do was draw out little lines and then follow the lines slowly but surely building up and up and up and up and up and up. Obviously something this technical would be exhausting for most of us, even myself, and I do some pretty detailed stuff. So make sure you choose your subject wisely. If you want to do a texture, make sure after practicing the circles that we're about to start on, you feel really comfortable with the picture when you look at it. Okay, so here's kind of what I'm looking for in the project. This was the picture I found online that was my inspiration. I'm going to end up doing a picture for Jake. For those of you that don't know who Jake is, Jake's my husband. He's really into Marvel, so I'm going to do a picture of Wolverine, and then I'm going to draw out 3 long rectangles, and I'll include a time-lapse video of it so you guys can see me working on it, of Hulk like screaming in the reflection of Wolverine's blades. So I thought that would be fun, and it's combining 2 images. But here you see the artist included like a guy on his bike with a young boy with glasses on. You could essentially recreate this whole image with another picture. You know, take one picture of you as a child, put giant glasses on, and then have somebody riding a bike. It's that simple. So don't overcomplicate it or think, oh my gosh, I'm not creative enough to do this. I'm combining 2 Marvel characters, and it doesn't have to be photorealistic. You know, what I like about this picture is that the biker is really photorealistic and the illustration of the child is, but then the wheels are kind of fun. You know, the glasses are obviously too big, the bicycle wheels aren't perfectly round, and it just lends itself to a really unique way of contrasting the 2 images. This one is kind of more generic. Like if you're really lost on the project, think of a really cool silhouette and illustrate a picture within the silhouette. So here's like, you know, a fleur-de-lis kind of design and then a picture of the Buddha behind. You could do something like that, and it's, you know, you would just draw out the silhouette and then put whatever image you want inside of that. Let's see, what else did I include here? Okay, so I showed you the rose only because the rose is gorgeous, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful piece. I just want to get your creative juices flowing. I want you to think of something that's going to require more brain power than just an illustration, because this project will be really tedious, so I want to make sure there's some playfulness to it for you. So make sure that you do something fun in the background. It could be whatever you want. I mean, you could even include, like, I mean, it's not very creative, but clouds in the background, and then you've combined 2 images. So it could be that simple. You don't have to overthink this project and do something gregarious and overly creative if that's not your style. If you want to do something very beautiful and soft and sweet, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just make sure it's not just a plain white background. With this one, I kind of like it because it kind of breaks the rules. When I saw it, I thought this would be a good one to show you how you can break the rules for this project. So the artist just did a blob. It takes up the majority of the picture, so that's like the one image. And then within it, they just kind of drew these little abstract owl shapes. And the beaks are contrasted, you know, they're just white. And then there's, you know, weird like human owl eyes. and then it's just an illustration of different types of circles and ovals and dash marks. And it fits the bill. You know, there's two images within one. You could even say the two owls are two different images, and it's more abstract. So this wasn't a gridded example or anything like that. So I just wanted to show you that one so that you can kind of think about it. Here's some other ones I found online that weren't stippling, but that were two images melded together. So you have the picture of is it a ram? I'm not sure. And then an octopus sitting on the back. You could do any two animals that way if you wanted to. And that was just like a close-up of all the different cool pen and ink illustrations. And then obviously this was an unfinished piece I found online, but you know, in the background there's like all kinds of crazy unique illustrations going on behind. And there's like a little baby in the octopus, which is kind of cool, weird at the same time. And then here's some more, you know, you see the close-up of that deer, and there's all kinds of craziness going on inside the face. So you could even do something like this where you create the silhouette of an animal and do, you know, flowers within or something like that, and then like stipple over all the flowers. So you do like just general like line drawings of flowers and then stipple the, you know, the fur shadows or something like that. It could be that fun. And then here, this one is just a bunch of tigers. You see the tiger's face right here, and there's a tiger lying down. And you could do something like that where you combine two trees or one tree and have like some kind of illustration within the tree, something like that. Okay, so moving on. To practice, what I want you guys to do, you'll have a week to do this, give or take. We'll see how it goes. With online, everything's kind of changing. But I want you to take a soda can. I don't have a soda can in here, so I'm just going to use a roll of tape. And you only have to do 2 circles, so pick whatever 2 circles you want to use. And I want you to start illustrating whichever one you feel comfortable with. Don't start with pencil first. I recommend just diving right in. So right now I'm going to set up, I'm going to figure out how to get this a little bit, actually I can just hold it. Okay. Sorry guys. Alright, so what I'm going to do here, I know that. Okay, so I'm going to choose, let's see here. I'll start with, I like this one, where it's just dark and it's white in the middle. If you're hearing those sounds, that's Mr. Poor being ridiculous in the other room. Okay, so here we go. I always like to work dark to light with stippling. So you want to work slowly but surely around the whole thing. So you can see it takes a lot of time, but it's relatively relaxing. The nice thing about the big circles is it'll kind of help you see the process. It seems like this will take forever. Each circle should probably, if you're sitting there and you're focused and you're not, you know, doing anything else, I would imagine it will only take you about an hour per circle. Just kind of depends on what you're doing. So what I do is I start by outlining my shadow, like my darkest area, with like a medium gray. I can always go back and make it darker. But for now, I'm just kind of outlining around, and then I kind of just slowly bring out the dots like that. This is also a really good project for you to develop some awesome independence, because even though stippling is one where everyone looks like it's a stippling, everybody looks so different for this project with the final project and the final product. So it'll be really cool to see everyone's final pieces, especially because we're starting it at home without being around one another. So you can see it's a little uneven around the edge. That's okay. You can always go back and make things darker, but you can't lighten them up, so you have to be really careful. Notice how I'm holding the pen. I'm not going dot, dot, dot. I'm kind of just gently holding it like a regular pencil. The most important thing to remember is in the darker shadows, don't press harder, which your brain will tell you to do, because that's what you would do with a pencil to make the pencil thicker. You don't want to do that. You want to, unfortunately, just kind of gently keep tapping, tapping, tapping. The most important thing, this is where you want to carefully place your dots, is as you come into the middle. You don't want to have, you can do lots of messy, even like dash marks like this in your dark shadows. You'll get, those get easier to make after time, but in your real light areas like this, real gentle. Make sure if you're left-handed, you have a sheet of paper underneath your hand, because even though the pen will dry really quickly, it might not dry fast enough for my left-handed artists. So make sure that you're really careful about not smearing the dots. Even my non-left-handed artists, be careful. I also find stippling's a really good way to start the year, because so many of you, as long as you take your time gridding and really drawing out your illustration, or if you don't grid, just really taking your time to draw really, really great underdrawing, you'll feel so good about this project. It's one where I would say probably 90% of my students finish it and say, oh my gosh, Miss Rutherford, this was it. Like, this was really fun. This is my favorite project. And they'll feel really, really, really good about it. So it's a good one for you guys to do on your own without me kind of breathing over your necks and teaching you how to watercolor and things like that. It also takes away the craziness of color theory too. And now you can see I'm really carefully just kind of going through and kind of spacing out my dots now so I can look for gaps and stand back. When I was in college, one of the very first projects we had to do was stippling, and we had to stipple an egg on a blanket, which was like the most crazy experience ever, because I took so much time creating this beautiful illustration of an egg sitting on a white blanket, which is really hard to do because everything is white. And then we had to do one of our first critiques, and we all posted our eggs on blankets and our illustrations, and when we stepped back, it was just this crazy little blur. And he, like, oh my gosh, we all got in so much, not trouble, but he was like, none of you stepped back from your artwork and took the time to step back, because we were all focused on making these little dots. And I remember going home and crying and thinking, I give up, and then realizing that's just their way of teaching you how to step back from your work. So that's something I want you guys to do with this project, is occasionally, you know, just like look back and see, you know, what is it looking like from far away. So obviously, like, even just like pulling the camera back like this, you can see it's really concentrated around the edge. You're missing like a lot of the medium grays here, which if you look at the illustration, it's definitely much more dark. So I'm going to have a lot of work to do eventually, but right now, like I said, I'm just laying out the general outline of my circle. So I think you have a good idea of the process, and now what I'm going to do is stop this video and create another time lapse so you can just watch me as I fill in the circles. Thanks for watching.